Welcome to the Essential Libertarians. I'm your host, Kareem Mays, with my awesome co-host, Daniel Bitro. And today we have an awesome guest. He's fighting the mandates. He's fighting government establishment consistently. This dude is a beast on social media, and he is fighting the information warfare every day. Guys, welcome Shane Chesher. Shane, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. I saw your interview with Kyle Matovic in Liberty and Health. Great interview. You should go check that out. Type in Liberty and Health in YouTube. We'll plug that at the end. But I really wanted to ask Shane, you had a zest for this. You said, hey, I'm going to walk away from the job. What do people need to know about fighting these mandates, and what's the best place to start?
Yeah, I mean, this is the fight of our lifetime. If we lose this fight for our freedom, we're going to lose it forever. People with power don't give stuff like this back. And this is obviously what they want. The mandates don't make much sense anymore if you're really paying attention. The places with like New York City with the biggest like mandates with the passports, they're struggling the most with cases right now, whether it's the cold or whatever you want to call it. They're struggling the most. So we have to fight back with whatever way we can. If it's not wearing the mask, if it's not taking the test, every little bit helps. And being silent is we can't be silent anymore. We have to speak out and not look the other way. And saying I'm doing my job or I'm just going with the flow, that's not okay anymore. We have to go against the grain and push back, or we're going to lose it all.
Yeah, and that's one issue I'm seeing is a lot of people are going along to get along. Actually, the majority of people, I know some people that ran out and said, I want to do this thing. Okay, you have your freedom, but a lot of people are saying, I don't want to do it, but I just have to because of X, because they said we're going to take this away, they're going to do this. Even my cousin I was talking, he said, well, they're going to take all my income. I had to go out and get this medical procedure. And I'm like, and there's certain points where, it's even tough for me, who's like super hardcore freedom, limited or no government, even to say like, well, I kind of get you here. But what would you say to those people like, oh, well, I just kind of have to go along to get along and everything?
Yeah, I mean, I know so many people that said I got to do this just to travel. I'm like, does that really mean that much to you? Like, people don't quite understand what's happening. They think this is, and some people don't think we can actually defeat the beast, the machine that is pushing these mandates against us. But we can if we just don't go along with it. Mass non-compliance is the way to defeat this. The people that just want to go along to get along, it's just like, it's obviously you just don't want the confrontation. You don't want that fight. But one day you're going to look back and say, I wish I would have did something. I wish I would have listened to me or somebody else saying, hey, if we don't fight back, we're going to lose this forever. So I take your cognitive dissonance, take that proof that you see in front of you and actually say, hey, wait a minute, maybe there is something going on here. Maybe I should look a little bit more into it and say, instead of saying, I'll put my head in the sand and saying the truth is just too disruptive,
Yeah, no, definitely. And one interesting thing that's really happening with all this is the truth is slowly coming out. Like before, you had to like type the right keywords in Odyssey and Rumble. At least that was my experience. You kind of had to dig deep. It wasn't so apparent. Now on YouTube, we have like the Rogan McCulloch interview, which me and
over 60 million views, by the way, on that video.
60 million views.
That's fucking crazy.
Rogan is crushing it.
Dude,
someday I'll be like
60 million red pills there. So that's
But then he talked about how this was all planned, and then there's a lot of people I even tried to talk to because I'm like, okay, maybe you disregard Del Bigtree or whoever, or InfoWars or whatever it is, but now I think that it is coming out slowly but surely. A lot of people are questioning it, but there's still a lot of people who are kind of like, I don't quite know. Where would you like send them to? Would you send them to the Joe Rogan, Peter McCulloch interview? That one seems to be good. Or are there other better sources to kind of get them like, oh, okay, here's what I can see. Here's what I can read.
I mean, the guy that invented the mRNA vaccine, Dr. Robert Malone, is completely against what's happening, and he's been saying for a while that what we're seeing is not good. With even how the spike protein was like going to the ovaries. Like he's like, that's not a good sign. It's not supposed to be doing that. You know, I think one way to shake people too is say, why are we giving these invincible children a vaccine that they don't need? Like it's more dangerous to them to do that than to let them get the virus. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to find different information. I found Telegram to be a great app to find information. It's where I get most of my stuff and then try to share it.
Yeah, I was asked today if I had a Telegram. My mic is way too loud. If I had one, and I was like, that's like the first time I had ever been asked that. But I don't know. Apparently, I'm just sorry to interrupt, but apparently this is a pretty good place to like share, you know, like sort of like Twitter instant clips and viral videos and stuff like that go on. So I think I might have an old one, but I got to make one of those. Anyway.
No, you can download the pictures, the videos right from there. It's actually pretty simple, and that's how I'm able to share videos. I say on Facebook, I hate it. I've actually deleted once.
Yeah.
But it's where the normies really are. The people that just don't get it yet. They're still posting pictures of their kids and their families and stuff. Like I quit all that. I'm like, no, that was a mistake actually, because they're just trying to consume all your data. There is sources out there. You just have to find them. I don't know if you guys necessarily would like this one, but I like Bannon's War Room. I think it's actually like Dr. McCall has been on there. Robert Malone's on there. Naomi Wolf, who's actually she was like total liberal, worked for Bill Clinton. And she's completely against what she's seeing now. There's just a lot of, have you guys ever heard of the Great Barrington Escape too, where 900,000 scientists and doctors signed off on basically saying, like what blocking down was wrong, and all these mandates and everything we're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I actually have not. I have to check that. I'm on the We Are Change Telegram with Luke Radowski, and I'm doing a lot of that, like posting there. Then I've been on like several different Telegrams, you know, for different people like Del Bigtree and Dr. Ben Tapper, and I post a lot of Bobby Kennedy stuff. One interesting thing I kind of want to throw by you is this. So a lot of people will give you the label, which they gave me the label to when I started posting against this, and say, hey, there's something going wrong here. Oh, they'll say the word anti-vaxxer. You're just anti-vax. And I say, actually, no, not completely. Like if someone said, hey, you know, I need to get my measles, or I need to get hepatitis, or chicken pox I got now, but fine, I'm going to go get my chicken pox. Like, okay, cool. Like I wouldn't even say anything. I'm like, okay, yeah. If you want to go get that. You know, that's been tried, and I don't know anybody who's really correct me if I'm wrong. Bobby Kennedy probably knows people got hurt from that, but overall, that seems to be they've been out for a while. Okay, there's different doctors who have different. Even I've heard on the board right and left, they're like, well, I think these ones are good, but this one's good, or none of them are good. I can respect both opinions, but this one doesn't seem to even be, as far as I'm concerned, what you would call a traditional thing. It's not an attenuated virus. It's not something that gives you a code.
How many times have you had to get the polio and measles vaccine? Think about that. Like typically, and I'm not even saying I'm for like mandating those vaccines either. But what I'm saying is like, you know, there are literally decades of work into these vaccines, and you take it, and it doesn't mean that you have 100% chance that you're never going to get it, but it's pretty damn close. And you get the vaccine when you're really young, and you don't have to worry about it again. Now, it's the same thing with something like even tetanus, right? Like the thing with the tetanus shot is that I think it's like every decade you have to get one or something like that because it wears off or something. But like that's every 10 years, right? We're talking every 6 months here. Every 6 months, you have to have a medical procedure done onto you. And you may say that medical procedure is, you know, perfectly fine. And you could say, well, the vaccine's good and it works and it stops people from critical injury and death from COVID-19. But you have to ask yourself, how much of that process of you going and get that injection every 6 months, how much of it is the fact that the company who creates those vaccines seeks to make profit every time you go and get that medical procedure? They get millions of dollars. How much of it is the fact that they, and I'm not going to say intentionally, let me just put it like this, because this makes a lot more sense when I do it like this. There was a virus. The virus was not deadly at all. 99.6% of people get this virus do not die. It's very bad against old people. 95% of all people 65 and older are vaccinated. And for the majority of the rest of the population, it's not that bad. And you have the media playing it up as terrible. And then you have these pharmaceutical companies who make medical procedures and these vaccines, let's say, and they need to make billions and billions of dollars. And how do they continue to make billions and billions of dollars? Well, they make a vaccine treatment that you have to get every 6 months. And it just turns out that you can never stop getting the vaccine treatment. So it's consistent, incremental profit in their pockets that never ends the rest of your life. You're telling me that all that, you don't think it's connected in any way. And when you explain that to people, you're like, yeah, I mean, it just seems so obvious.
Yeah, I mean, you guys hit great points. I mean, there's so much. I mean, actually, Pfizer just purchased a cardiovascular system for $6.7 billion, and that's one of the main bad things that are happening with the experimental shot. And that's one thing we always forget too, that this is experimental. Like nobody knows the long-term effects. And that was always like one of the biggest red flags to me. The rush of it was everything about it. Like they were showing fake hospital scenes in the worst part of the pandemic, the very beginning. They were showing scenes from Italy that were actually saying it was New York City. So they've been pushing the fear since the start of it. And the old people were the most affected, still are the most affected, but they're the most affected in any with any virus, flu, pneumonia. And where did the flu go? And now it's suddenly coming back. We had a PCR test that couldn't differentiate between the flu, cold, COVID, influenza A, B, and now we have a test that's miraculously can differentiate between these. And now the flu is making a comeback. So some of these COVID cases last year were just influenza A or B, and I mean the flu has killed people before. So and they definitely pumped the numbers and they pumped the fear, and it's just crazy.
I remember one thing that I remember, and you guys can probably talk on this because I think you both are pretty older than me. How old are you, Shane?
34.
Yeah, so I'm only 20 years old. So you got some years on me, right? When I was younger, I remember being in school, and I remember multiple times that there were these videos played of the flu. And it was like all of the people like showing how you can die from the flu and stuff, like you died from it. And I remember them showing us the flu, and it showed like all the cases where all the kids had died, and like it's like serious. And then the went into the CDC guidelines, wash your hands, blah blah blah. And it was like such a fear-mongering video. I didn't think it that at the time, but it's like I just remember them showing all the times where all the people who got the flu died, and it made me and a lot of other people in the school think, wow, you can actually die from the flu. And it's like, well, yeah, you can actually die from a lot of things, but when you hyper focus on again, I've talked about this a lot. I continuously repeat it, but when you hyper focus on the implicit fear of death, which is contained in every human individual, right? That response that invokes that fight or flight response, which is the fear of death, which we all have. It's a universal fear among us all. Some people feel it to different degrees, but we all have an underlying fear of death because it's one of the only universal things that will happen in our lives. We're not all going to do the same things. We're not all going to lead the same lives. We're not going to all even die the same ways. We're not going to be born in the same ways, other than we don't even breathe the same oxygen necessarily. We have different lungs. Physiologically, we're much different. Some people have one liver. Some people have one kidney. We differ a lot, but we all die so far right now at this very moment. So what I saw is like they just play on this death, this fear of death. And in reality, when those cases were like 30 or 40 out of millions and millions of people who got the flu. And that's what they did with COVID. It's like, I remember now thinking about it when, I don't know if you guys remember this, but the New York hospitals, they just kept showing it on CNN and MSNBC. They were just like flooded with people who died. And it was like, it was like Armageddon. Like it was nightmarish the way it was. And I remember watching it and thinking, dude, this virus is really bad. And I remember seeing the scenes in Italy and stuff like that. And then when we look at a lot of the stuff now, we realize that doctors, a lot of doctors had had pretty much thought that there were certain treatments that were available to these people. McCullough talks about it, that, you know, they weren't for sure things, but doctors had made points that they think certain medications which had stopped replication of the virus of other viruses in vitro, like ivermectin and all these other drugs, and hydroxychloroquine, that could have worked because they've done similar things with other viruses, SARS viruses included, and they were suppressed. And it looks a lot like almost all those people that died, not all, but a large portion of those people that died in those hospitals could have been prevented even early on, because you had doctors who were asking to use, from what they knew, emergency knowledge. And just like you gave the government the ability and pharmaceutical companies to develop a vaccine quicker than it's ever been, you know, there was a lot of doctors who had experience with viruses like this and wanted to use different medications and therapeutics to help prevent death in the hospitals. They weren't being allowed to, you know, and then you put in the fact that parents and families weren't allowed being in the hospitals. They couldn't even see exactly what was going on. I mean, there's so much stuff there that we still haven't even figured out about the beginning days of COVID. That, I mean, it's a dark, dark, dark mess. But I mean, we know from Cuomo, and we know from the nursing homes that there was many medical advisors who said this is not a good idea, who said that you cannot put the young people into a place where it's filled with the most vulnerable population, where the virus is going to be easily transmissible in a place like this when it's dormant. And it's going to kill people. And 15,000 people in New York died as a result of the governor's decision. So, I mean, like, it's dark stuff here, man.
And it all could have been prevented. Actually, I was going to, since Shane, you're super, like, you have tons of sources, I'm actually curious to hear, like, your opinion on hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and anything else you think is a good idea, like, for people who, like, okay, fine, maybe they are actually concerned. I'm not going to tell people don't care, but, like, okay, say because people ask me if I get it, what would I do? My doctor said, hey, ivermectin works for Joe Rogan. People joke at Christmas parties, he's my doctor. It's not my doctor, but hey, why not? What do you think?
I mean, yeah, monoclonal antibodies. You know, I mean, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, high regimens of vitamins, obviously, and we should all be taking vitamins anyways.
And for YouTube's sake, just real quick, so I don't get banned, he's not saying that anyone in the audience take this. He's simply saying that he thinks this worked for himself, and he thinks this is good, and that it's been shown in studies and data that it has worked, and that, you know, it's something that, you know, he may necessarily do, but he's not advising anyone who's listening to do. So
yeah, this is not medical advice. I'm just getting someone's opinion on certain medical things.
Yeah, 100%. Dr. McCullough talked about budesonide, which is a steroid nasal spray. And you can actually do it through a nebulizer as well. I mean, it's crazy. And Dr. Zev Zelenko, incredible source, now he's saying his life feels threatened. You know, and they shut these people down. These were real doctors, real scientists. I mean, McCullough's background is absolutely insane. And the way they try to discredit him, and the way they even attacked ivermectin, calling it a horse dewormer when it was a pill that was actually prescribed to these people, should be a red flag. It should wake you up and say, hey, like, why are they hiding this stuff? Why are they trashing this stuff? Why aren't we having a science conversation? Like everything in science is meant to be questioned and actually challenge it the correct way. I mean, they put a Lancet report out about hydroxychloroquine right away, and they eventually had to retract it. And that was Fauci and Dr. Collins that from the NIH that were directly on that. I mean, a really good film is called Indoctrination. It's the second part of the Plandemic series. Highly suggest watching it, and it explains. Yeah. It explains all this and explains how doctors are controlled. And we think doctors are our friends, and there are doctors that are our friends, but they have people to answer to too. So it's just
they're in business too. So as far as I'm concerned, like when people say, yeah, okay, you go, I'm not going to tell people, yeah, go ask your doctor, but realize that they have a paycheck, they want to get paid and stuff like that, which kind of brings me to the big thing that got me from a libertarian perspective is if you have a bag of chips next to you, you have beer, whatever it is, they have that guarantee. If you're not 100% satisfied, maybe you're not, but like every product I can think of says if something bad goes, well, okay, you can sue us. The biggest thing that got me, even aside from any treatment or whatever it is, was there's no liability. Because I know if there's liability for me as a libertarian, same argument I have with the problems with police, same argument I have with the problems. If there's liability, you'll be like, wait, do I want to do this? Because if I mess up, I get sued, and getting sued's not fun. You got to go to court, and you can lose billions of dollars. Is that a red flag that kind of got you at first, Stephen? And you think that's something like, at least if people don't want to even look into, like, I don't want to watch Indoctrination, I don't want Peter McCullough, is that like that the low status bar of like, hey, something's going on, there's no liability? Is that in your mind something?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, it just makes sense. Like, that's what I want people to, like, take a step back and just ask that to yourself. Like, why can't I sue them? Like, what's going on here? I mean, they are indemnified. Like in certain countries, they actually won't allow certain vaccines to be in there because they won't allow the indemnity to be there. That we're not plugging refugees right now because they know they can sue the company because they're not American citizens. That's what's going on. I guess it's actually crazy. So I mean, it's definitely a red flag for anybody. I mean, I think it should be.
And we got this. We have inflation. We have the situation with Ukraine. We have like a million different things that could just keep listing, what Brandon did and all that stuff. In your opinion, is it a good idea? Like, because I know some people say a red wave will work. That could change things. I don't know how though, because it does seem from my perspective, both sides work together more often than they work against each other. But when it comes to like it's and stuff like that, I do like seeing the Republicans, some of them saying these people are rhinos, or I guess they call them America Firsters, whatever it is. What, in your opinion, is a good way to get out, or what should be done to kind of help like libertarians, patriots, minarchists, ANCAPs, and all those people? Is there a good way to kind of raise awareness and get candidates like that out there?
Yeah, I mean, you got to research your candidates. You got to understand like what the heck's happening out here. Evil has no party. To be honest with you, I was a Democrat for a long time. I fell for the Democratic lie. I guess I would identify as conservative. After talking to Kyle and learning more about libertarianism, it's a lot of how I identify, though. It's about liberty, and it's about the decentralization of government. Where actually, if I coach a Constitution class, we're not supposed to be so federalized. We're not supposed to have CIAs, FBIs, like all this bull. Like all of those are corrupt in some facet or some kind of way. But it's actually federal overreach. It's federal overstep. It is supposed to be on a state level, and we've just screwed it up in so many ways. And that's because we always trade the safety for liberty, and that's the last thing we're supposed to do. And that's what people are doing now with the mandates. And we can't do it. So.
Yeah. And then just one thing I want to kind of ask your opinion, because me and libertarians have different views, even me and Kyle and some other people have different views. I know there's some people in New York and Cali who are like, man, I do not like what's going on. Newsom and this Hochul, I believe you call it, like, shit, he's nuts. Part of me wants to say, okay, definitely if you have to leave. But I also have an argument of, well, hey, look, listen, if you keep leaving, they're going to leave too. They're not going to pick up an economics book and be like, man, I screwed up my state. They'll just say things are bad here. I'm going to run to, it seems like Texas is turning bluer from what people tell me. I don't live there, but do you think people should stay in these kind of, I know it's not a good situation. I'm not saying you have to stay in New York or Cali if you don't want, but do you think some people should stay or liberty, conservative, libertarian, freedom minded, and try and get these states back to a reasonable place so it doesn't keep coming out to other states and turning them bad? Because I could see that happen too.
Yeah, I mean, we have a big year coming up here, 22. Like it could be monumental for the change in America. I think you should stand and fight your ground. I fight with the kids with masks in school, and now we've lost that battle in some senses. And parents are telling me, well, I'm going to pull my kids from the school. And I said, well, what about all the other kids that don't have that option? That can't leave. Like, like we have to fight for the people that there's some people that can't leave their jobs here, their lives here, their families here. It's not that simple always. So I think you should stand and fight your ground. Running's never been a big thing for me to run away from your problems, because usually they find a way to follow you. Yeah, I think we should fight our ground. I think this is a big year. I think people have never been so involved in politics and what's happening in our government and our world. We've never paid so much attention as we are now, and it's what we needed to do. We were asleep at the wheel, and the government took full control of it. They wanted that. They distracted us, and here we are now, paying attention again, and hopefully we can get them back in check. So
yeah, I definitely hope so, because ever since 9/11, back then it was different. We did come together more, but I think a lot of people are well, just give them a little bit, Kareem. Come on, something bad happened. Just give them. They'll give them the. And I'm I highly doubt if you let this Patriot Act go, they'll just turn it to a monster in their surveillance state. They're what are you talking about? We got to do it. And I'm okay, fine, whatever. And then it's Patriot Act, okay, another war. Oh, we got to expand a little bit longer. And I see the same thing unfolding here. I don't know if you feel the same, but I feel like they just took the war on terror and said, well, we didn't really win it the way we want, or maybe they did from their perspective. But hey, do you think this is essentially the war on terror turned inward to okay, eventually, as the founding fathers said, wars overseas will always come back to the civilian population, something like that?
Yeah, I think we're trying to witness the demise and destruction of America, because America stands in the way of a globalist regime. America stands for liberty and freedom, and that's what other countries can base their governments off that, and they do, and we've seen that. But nothing's like America. But if America falls and falls to the same as China and that's what they're trying. I honestly feel like they're trying to destroy America from within. And when you do that, there's nowhere else to run to. So this is the last stand.
It is. Now, me and Daniel have talked about this. Actually, the congresswoman who tweeted this suggestion, is in your profile picture. And even the one thing John Podesta, which is crazy. I don't like him for any other. And Marjorie Green have in common is Marjorie went on Twitter and said, hey, this is kind of a hostile environment. I forget exactly her tweet, but she said, what do you think of a peaceful divorce? And I just looked at the comments to get a feel of the temperature. And it was mostly yeah, we'll try it. Tim Pool has talked about, hey, there would be civil tensions coming. I saw 80% of Trump supporters and Biden supporters want the other, hey. And I started thinking okay, what's the best way kind of out of this? To me, some conservatives and constitutionalists disagree, but I'd love to know your thoughts. I'm a proponent of hey, if we're going to have a peaceful divorce, we have a peaceful divorce. And you can try, I'm all for freedom. You can try your crazy ideas and high taxes and 20 mandates, and you can't go out without jumping through a scanner and this. You can try that. And then over here, we'll try freedom and we'll see which one works better. What do you think of a peaceful divorce to avoid conflict, at least domestically? I get there's China and there's other concerns, but I think those could be addressed. I'm just curious.
It doesn't sound terrible, but I don't know. I hope we don't have to go that way, to be honest, because the United States would lose the power that they actually have as the United States. This land, everything we have is only great together. I don't think if you separate it, it would be as powerful as it would be. So that's interesting. I'm not a big fan of divorce. I think you should try to work it out if you can. You got married for a reason, so we're all united for a reason. I could see the pros of it. I agree. You actually were kind of convincing me with the way you were telling me. But I just think personally that we got to try to fight and win this together. We're more powerful together, just as we as people are more powerful together.
Yeah.
So
I would say this: if things keep going down a bad road, inflation, they keep saying oh, you put $600. What are you doing with $600? Dude, I don't know. You just printed quantitative easing. I'm sorry. 30,000 or 100,000 in your bank account, and if it gets to be too much, then I can understand the reasons against it. I'm still more on definitely on the side for it, kind of like an Articles of Confederation type thing where, okay, each state's kind of its own country, but we can agree like, okay, China and Russia are doing stuff. We're all going to collectively work together. And then, you go, the New Yorkers can do their thing and that. So yeah, I'm on both. I understand arguments from both sides. Obviously I'm a little bit, or pretty strongly towards the peaceful divorce right now, but we'll have to see. We'll definitely have to see. I can understand your perspective as well. Where can, like, you have a lot of knowledge. Where is there a good place to like find you and kind of learn more? Because I see you're posting tons of links just on a single Facebook page about what's going on with this.
Yeah, I try to create like a page, but Facebook just doesn't like me. So, like I said, I was deleted. So, I mean, I do post stuff on Facebook daily. My story's a little bit more useful, I think, because I can post more in there. It's not a shadow banned. I feel I'm very shadow banned on there. I was on Twitter. I was deleted on Twitter. But Telegram, it's under Patriotic Truth. So
Telegram, Patriotic Truth, and yeah. Definitely, I'll pull. For some reason, I can't pull Telegram on my desktop.
You can get it though. Yeah, you can get it on the desktop.
I'll have to do that, but also at the end, plug your Facebook so people can learn what the heck is going on. So yeah, Shane, I wish you the best. I also know, like, you've been fighting this with your family, so I wish you the best, man. Thanks for standing up. Thanks for standing for freedom and being a patriot. So now, guys, if you want to, let's break down some news articles that I think are going to be pretty interesting towards what's going on. Would you be down for that?
Yeah.
All right. How you doing, Dan?
I'm pretty good. How about yourself?
All right. So let's get into the one that really irks me, because this one caused me problems too with my family. So we'll get into a lot of things. But first, if you enjoyed this interview with Shane, if you want to keep the ideals of Murray Rothbard alive, the Ron Paul revolution going, go to the lpmisescaucus.com. Our message simple: no more wars, no more lockdowns, no more bailouts. You're an individual. You can make the best decisions for yourself. If you're excited, you can go ahead, put your first, last name, email, phone number, state, and be part of the decentralized revolution. If you have questions, go to resources and click on our actions here to learn more. So this article kind of hits home from We Are Change, because I have an uncle in Georgia, a family overseas, and they're like, why don't you get on a plane, Kareem, and even my band, we were talking, they're like, why don't you renew your passport? And I'm like, I can, but I'm not getting on a plane to travel anywhere. They're like, why? I'm not wearing a mask for that. Like, if I have to do it for like 10 seconds, whatever, but like, I'm not wearing a mask on a plane. I'm actually come to the point where I'm not really wearing it at all. But Fauci says masks forever. So this is why we got to win an election in PA and somewhere. But so what did he say? Fauci says American travelers should expect masks forever on commercial air travel. So I guess you can get Delta Karen, as I call her, to yell at that old guy and spit on him and all this weird stuff. You can look at that one on your own. That one's crazy. But apparently getting the procedure 3 times, 4 times, like they're doing in Israel now, just keep making more goalposts is not enough. So when it comes to masks and air travel, Fauci is clearly signaling there will be no end, just like the war on terror. The National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, who has come to be hailed as a national hero by liberals, who simply likes to repeat the mantra, trust the science, and this week, in a recent interview, said that removing masks on an airplane is not something we should even be considering. Fauci responded to a question on a show with host Jonathan Karl, who asked whether there should be a mandate in place for all domestic air travel. I think the idea of taking masks off, in my mind, is not really something we should even be considering. And that's, of course, I'm not surprised he's going to say that, but he flip-flops constantly. And then the thing that also bugs me is this. They also want to put a medical procedure mandate for a person who's getting on a plane, just to make another level, saying that, oh, okay, well, now I'm wearing a mask. That's not even going away. You can't even beat that hoop. Now they want people to say, hey, you have to get this medical procedure or you can't get on a plane, which is just another way of getting requirements. And this caused problems for me because I didn't visit my uncle. And you can look at Delta Karen here, which it's a crazy story where she yelled at a guy who wasn't wearing a mask while eating. This is killing my brain cells. He wasn't wearing a mask while eating. She wasn't wearing a mask. She yelled at him for not wearing a mask and spit on him. So this mandate's clearly working great, Fauci. But my question to you guys is, what do we need to do, or what are some practical steps we can do to just get rid of masks completely on airlines? Is it winning an election? Is it because I like what West did with the mandates, but it needs to go further. I want to be able to fly like this completely and be in the airport like this. I'm not wearing, a face muzzle and suffocating myself for 8 hours. Get your guys' perspective on that.
I mean, I can't believe we still got this guy on TV that helped create this pandemic. It is absolutely mind-blowing to me every day. And I see him
fund gain of function, but he funded gain of function.
I mean, it's just it's mind-boggling. This guy, I mean, is lied, and continues to lie and continues to move the goalpost and doesn't make any sense. And yet he's still like the leader of the fight against the pandemic. But I mean, how do we beat it? Is we have to get involved. We have to hold our representatives and our people accountable. We can't keep giving them passes anymore. And there's a lot. I feel like almost all of them are failing us right now, in a sense, because none of them are fighting hard enough. None of them are doing enough. Not any of them are speaking out enough. None of them are drawing up enough bills to get this stuff over with. It's just, I think we just need to hold them accountable. There's no like real set way to beat this, but pushing back is obviously the way to do it. So.
I think Rand Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, Rand Paul had a bill to knock masks out. I'm like, come on, Rand, because he's like, if you talk about Republicans who I really, really, really like, it's like Massey and Rand. I'm like, what are these guys doing to kind of further freedom? And they seem to be on the front lines of like, let's just don't comply, which is good. At least we have 2 congressmen. I'll take it. It's not great, but I'll take it. Daniel, do you have any thoughts on this as well? I know this is a little bit older news. But
just don't wear them. That's my advice.
I agree.
What if everyone who ever flew on a plane just didn't wear the mask? You think that? I mean, they might kick out every single person who didn't wear a mask. But let's just say that for one, that wouldn't be good for business. And for 2, that would take more labor, and they're already short-staffed right now too. So how many people does it take to restrain, one person, maybe 1, 2? How many people does it take to remove, 4, 5, 6, 7 people when they're already short-staffed? So again, you have the leverage as a consumer because, believe it or not, whether the market's fair or not, you do have effect in the market, and you do pay their bills, and you do make their profits, and you do have an effect on their margin and how much they make. So just don't wear them. And if they kick you out, let them kick you out. Get on a flight until a flight accepts you. I mean, that's what I would do. I've gotten kicked off a bus for it. I've ridden the bus and I was like, no, I'm not putting it on. And, they kicked me out. Cops come and remove me. Whatever. I don't care. You're going to have to kick me out every time. And if everyone did that, yeah.
I haven't been kicked out of an airport or airplane because I haven't gotten on one. But if I do, I will probably get kicked out by somebody, an air marshal, whoever it is. Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
And you don't need to be an asshole either. Like, I don't mean being
right.
Like, one thing that I want to say though, so I'm clear, is like, I don't think you should be one of those assholes who just sits there and makes things difficult for people. But like, if you want to wear the mask and it's not that big of a deal for you, like, okay, wear the mask, whatever. If it doesn't bother you that much, right? Then I'm not telling you to make a big deal and make a scene about it. But what I'm saying is, if you're on the damn plane and like you want to take your mask off and like someone says something to you, don't comply. Like, you have autonomy over yourself. And if you don't want to wear a mask, then don't wear one. but you don't need to be an asshole about it. You can be non-compliant, but also respectful, right?
Yeah. One act of
So-
defiance can start a revolution.
So just don't wear it. In fact, if they say anything to you, you don't even have to say anything. Just don't wear a mask.
Yeah, actually,
Just
like
don't
that.
wear it.
I
Just
don't
be
like
quiet.
people.
They're going to remove.
Yeah.
You know why? Because the video is always people who are loud, noisy, rude, who don't want to wear a mask being removed. What if every video was a person who was quiet, not noisy, getting removed out of the airport? Every time it was someone who was quiet and didn't speak. The narrative would be a lot different. But when you have people who are loud and they're yelling and they're making a scene and they look ignorant, whether they're ignorant or not, I get why they're angry, but they're being a little absurd in their tone, and like image matters, especially in this sort of culture war. So just don't speak. Have them remove you and take you out of there while you're not saying anything and you're not rude. And it will just like in the 60s with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and how they did certain things and didn't do certain things because of the way the media would cover it. Now, if on Tulsa, if what happened on the bridge, if all of those people who were fighting for civil rights at the time, including MLK, if they would have beat the cops up and they would have fought the cops, the narrative would have been a lot different than you had a bunch of innocent black people getting beat up by the police and not doing anything. So again, you control the narrative and don't let them spin it. Don't give them stuff that you don't need to give them, I guess I would say.
Yeah, no, I definitely, like when I read about Rosa Parks, it wasn't like, I'm never giving up this seat after you, and like you hit the guy, because media can spin that like, hey, he's belligerent, she's belligerent, whatever. But if you just say no, or you don't say anything, yeah, I think that's great. So going into 2022, I found this article, I found it to be funny. What's Bill Gates most worried about in 2022? What is Kill Gates worried about? Well, he said one particular problem that could slow or derail much of progress he predicted is people's distrust of governments. I don't know where that came from. So I guess don't ask Cortana what is, anarchy, what anarcho-capitalism, conservatism, minarchism. Don't ask that. One of the issues I'm most worried about heading into 2022, he wrote, public institutions, Gates noted, need to be major players in fights like addressing climate change or preventing the next pandemic. But they can only do so much if people reject their guidance on principle. If your people don't trust you, they're not going to support major new initiatives, Gates wrote. When a major crisis emerges, they're less likely to follow guidance necessary to weather the storm. Interestingly enough, what I would say, that you can check out this article and make it. I don't particularly like this article, but I did find this funny because, and from my perspective, not all of them, but a lot of these major initiatives, all these things that governments say that we want your guidance from, we want your support from, we want you to fall in line, they created the problem. They created the problem, as far as I'm concerned, with the war on terror. They created the problem with COVID. They created all these problems. There's an interesting phrase, I think it's ordo ab chaos, order out of chaos. And this is exactly what these people do. That's why they want you to fall in line, so they can keep you saying, okay, here's a problem, here's my solution. Here's a problem, here's my solution. You just go along with the program. And Bill Gates isn't saying that, but I can kind of feel the undertones of what he's going with. Well, if you don't trust these major players, you're not going to fall in line. Yeah, because why don't you mention Bill Gates, Kill Gates, that these major institutions are causing 90% of these problems, if not all of them. And that's the one thing I just draw people's attention to in that article. But yes, I do like making fun of Bill Gates and Fauci. It's my pastime.
They deserve it. I mean, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Dan or Shane. But that's what I wanted to say is Bill Gates is, I find it funny. One, he's afraid people are distrusting the government for good reason. They failed at every level. And two, the funny thing that I really find is, they won't follow guidance. Yeah, because you created the problem.
It's like this. So there's this global problem about the environment and the climate, will be more specific. and eventually, certain people who are smart people and they've been to school say that eventually we're going to do something to the climate that's irreversible, and we may not pay the price, but our children's children may pay the price, and live in a much worse world where things are going to be a lot worse, and the temperature is going to rise by, this differs, but 0.5 to 1.5%, and the time frame differs as well, depending on whose analysis you're looking at. But there is a consensus among most scientists and people who study climate that we are negatively affecting it. Okay, fair. But what most people don't tell you, and especially governments, and especially most sort of climate change activists, is that the largest producer of carbon emissions are governments by far. Like, there's not coming close. I mean, the jets, the planes, the bombs, the millions and millions and millions of places they need to engage in their bureaucracy, right? Those buildings, all of those things, it's the government. But so what does that mean? Does that mean that the way we solve climate change is maybe get rid of the government? Because on average, you as the individual emit nowhere close than someone like John Kerry does. Just you name any figure from the government, because you don't fly as much as them, you don't drive as much as them, you don't even go out to the store as much as them. You're probably not as unless you're a millionaire, you're not as luxurious as them. You don't buy as much stuff. So they emit probably, you could say, at least double the carbon than you do. So it's just the funniest thing to me. It's like, where do you think carbon's emitted from? Like, yeah, you can say these factories, like, fine, but there's not that many factories left, right? How many coal factories do you know of? They're there, but I mean, like, the government and when you see the fund at the end of the year and you see that the military was gifted with billions of dollars in money, what do you think they do with that billions of dollars? Produce massive amounts of weapons and guns and bombs, and then drop those bombs on other countries that are poor. And we can go into that all day, but they make those guns and those bombs, and that emits a lot of carbon. And those planes, those warships, you name it, there's carbon in it when it comes to the military industrial complex. And they're no fan of green tech. Like, think about the military industrial complex. Like, they love bombs. You think they're going to do green bombs? You think they're going to go green when it comes to their bombs?
That'd be a funny Raytheon commercial.
Do you know what I mean? But they'll fly the flag, though. They'll fly the flag, and they don't mind doing that and looking the look. But at the end of the day is they don't really care. They just want to use certain things, whether they're true or not, to get more power and to expand their powers and to keep those powers, whatever the pretext is, whether it's the war on terror, whether it's the COVID virus, whether it's climate change. If it can extend their power, they'll use it and they'll take advantage of it. While Obama and Hillary and Bill and Biden, I mean, Biden's in his beach house property right now. Delaware, he's in his beach house property right now as we speak. If the climate was so bad, why would these people invest millions of dollars in properties by the beach? Yeah, why?
Pelosi got like a beach house. I don't know if that's true or not, but I find like all the virtue signaling kind of funny, because you'll see Raytheon, they're like, we're committed to diversity. I'm like, are the people you attack or like you're hiring? Oh, no. And then all these climate change people are like, let's go in our private jets to like the G, whatever it is, 20. Oh, and then let's lecture people. I'm like, I would never. A private jet to me is so ridiculous anyway. Like, okay, I get it. I'm not saying you shouldn't have it, but okay, you have 10 private jets, and then you're all going to lecture everybody on climate change, and you're going to tell people how they're making a big CO2 footprint when you are the biggest contributor. Government is the biggest one in pollution. I honestly think if you got government out of the way, yeah, not only would you have a better environment, not only would you have better fiscal policies or whatever they happen to be, maybe they're with cryptocurrency or whatever, but then you wouldn't even have people like Bill Gates elevated to this level because he couldn't control the government or the corporate media. And that's maybe the biggest takeaway. Bill Gates doesn't want you to distrust government because he controls a lot.
Yeah, and one of the most basic things, it's such basic in literature, is that as people climb up the socioeconomic hierarchy, they're more likely to be more conscientious of the environment. They're less likely to throw away trash. They're more likely to care about their environment. The higher they move up in income class, it's basic stuff here. So if you wanted to help people become more conscientious about the environment, then you would help bring people up in socioeconomic class. But that's obviously not what's happening. It's
No.
the largest upward transfer of wealth in history during COVID. The rich got richer and the poor got poorer. So that's definitely not the way you want to go if you want to get working people to care about the environment more, which then shows me that they really don't care. Because if they cared about having working people and the average American to care about their environment more, they would help bring them up in socioeconomic class, but they don't do that.
And you know how they could do that? Stop quantitative easing. They don't actually print money. Stop typing random numbers in and increasing the money supply by 30 trillion this. And every president, as far as I'm concerned, I've been alive, has been bad fiscally because they just keep spending. Stop spending. Stop printing money out of thin air. This is why people are going to Bitcoin and gold. But I will say this. You call me skeptical. I don't know if this is good, bad. I don't know where this goes. This actually on its face makes sense. I'm not saying I like the guy, but a broken clock maybe is right. Twice a day, as they say. Biden says the Rona surge needs to be solved at the state level. And as far as I'm concerned, I would like everything to be solved at the state level. And he says that he's going to give federal support. I don't know exactly what he means by that. He doesn't make sense when he talks. But let's talk about Joe Biden, my bad, on Monday. He said he was going to support governors struggling with Omicron, which if you rearrange that, it comes to moronic, but whatever. He was going to help people with Omicron, but acknowledge states will need to take the lead in controlling this, which if you want to take the lead, just do what they're doing in Florida, I guess. Speaking just before a meeting with some of the nation's governors, Biden said there's no federal solution. This gets solved at the state level. And actually, these came after an explicit acknowledgement from the Biden administration that will need help from state and local governments in its effort to curb the spread of this. This president may be concerned that federal initiatives to contain this virus can't be effective without the state's help. The comments could also be an attempt to add pressure on governors and to take a greater role in trying to control this. And basically what he said is to the message to the governors is simple. Biden got a whole sentence out. Woo! It's like Christmas. If you need something, say something, he said. We're going to have your back any way we can. So what I'm going to say to this is I'm very skeptical because when a government does something I like, they usually screw it up, like Afghanistan or anything else. I do like the statement on its face. Yes, states should handle it the way states want to handle it, even though there's certain states I don't think they will handle it as well, like New York and California, like the way Texas, Florida, and Tennessee handled it. But I kind of like to actually really get your guys' thoughts on this. Is this meaning we're at the end of it? Did we kind of beat out the federal mandates at least? Or is this part of something else? I actually don't know. Sometimes I go too far.
Yeah, that's I mean, I don't know if you want to get too deep into it. Honestly, it's almost like he's waving the white flag because he doesn't know what to do. I mean, this is the same guy that said 8 months ago that he's going to shut down the virus, not shut down the country. And he honestly, like, he hasn't done anything. He's made it worse. And if you're paying attention to mandates, they make it worse. The places with 100% vaccinated are struggling the most. Even the elite NHL shut down, 100% vaccinated. So the mandates in New York is really struggling right now because they fired all these healthcare workers, which that should be a red flag to people. Healthcare workers getting fired for not getting medical procedure. But so New York is struggling like crazy, and they have vaccine passport system there. So now they're bringing the National Guard in. I don't know what Biden's really trying to do here. He actually has that's how we're supposed to handle it, though. The states are supposed to handle it. Trump actually kind of did the same way. He gave it to the states and let the states decide. Then Biden kind of came in with this whole federal push, and it's obviously backfired in his face. I do think they're still going to push these mandates, but we'll see what happens in the Supreme Court on January 7th. So I'm I don't have much faith in the Supreme Court, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't either, especially like after this past election. So we'll see what happens. The weird thing with me in politics is one day it's kind of like a wave. One day it's up, one day it's down. One day you think it's going good, the next day it's going bad. What do you think, Daniel? Is he just kind of? I don't even mind if he. I know because most politicians, when they, even Trump, even Bush and Obama, they all said things that sounded great when they were, and then a lot of the things they can't or did the opposite of. I can remember Bush saying we're not the police of the world. Obama saying the war in Iraq is bad, started more, and there are promises like Trump to go after Hillary, which would have been nice, and things like the pardon Snowden, things like that. So, and Biden said he shut down the virus. Obviously, didn't. Now he's kind of waning back and saying, "Well, the state should solve it." Does that sound good to you, or what do you think he's trying to do here?
Well, for one, I think that he's getting ready to go to his beach house and he wants to get away from the press. So I think he's a little sleepy. He's a little tired. And he was just like, whatever. Let Texas figure it out. I'm going home. Something along those lines, right? But in reality, I think that Biden doesn't even know exactly where he is and exactly who he is, and he's confused a lot. And I mean this really psychologically. I mean, analytically, just examining his behavior, sometimes he seems very lost, and sometimes other people who have been around him have, pointed these things out. And you have people taking phone calls that typically are phone calls the president would take. You have the press constantly espousing what was the case. Biden will say something, and then his press secretary will say, well, actually, because he'll say the wrong thing, and then they have to keep correcting him and correcting this because he keeps saying something and it's the other. And so, I mean, truly, I think that he is degrading continuously, and I think it will continue to get worse.
Definitely.
And I think that Biden, listen, I don't take anything he says with any sort of truly. And listen, it's not to say that the man's entirely bad or entirely good. It just means I think he's not entirely, but he's almost entirely cognitively. Well, he is cognitively in decline. Whatever facets are left in his mental faculty, I mean, there's not much left there as far as being on your toes and being intellectually savvy. And we all are going to get there one day. I mean, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people as they get older get very, they decline in their cognitive ability and their ability to sort of engage in complex thoughts and conceptualization. So it's not like I'm saying Biden's rare in that case. All I'm saying is that we saw how bad he was 2 years ago, 2 years ago now, and we see how bad he is now. There's no sort of sign of him going back. He's had multiple surgeries for aneurysms and multiple brain surgeries. I just think the guy is really lost, and I think his administration is who you should blame, not him. His administration, because there are some damn competent people in his administration, and it's sort of like it's what's it called, Hanlon's razor, where it's like, don't attribute malice to that which can be attributed to a competence. It's sort of the opposite of the Hanlon's razor. It's like there's a lot of competent people in his administration. Stop attributing incompetence to these very, very competent and highly educated, affluent people. They're competent. They know what they're doing. Most of them have plans. Most of them have agendas. Most of them have things that they want to ascertain. They have their goals and they're trying to accomplish them. So Biden is the last person that you should blame. And I mean that really, because what does it do you? Oh, Biden's fucking up. Like, That's really a scapegoat for his administration, because everyone else in his administration who are really the operatives here, who really should be to blame and who have way more power than Biden does, and who are likely to have more power longer, because Biden's on his way out. So is Pelosi. All these younger folks like Pete Buttigieg, all these other people who are really pulling more strings and are really having more of an effect on not only government, but on the way people live their lives. They have cover. Biden is their cover.
Yeah.
So stop blaming Biden and start blaming the competent, highly affluent, educated people in his administration. That's what I would say.
I completely agree. However, if you want to encourage your friend, especially if his name's Brandon, then it's always nice to say, let's go, Brandon. People need encouragement. That's the only reason I say that. So last two stories. Okay, let's say Biden is 100% right and there's the federal mandates are done. We're done. Woo! Does that mean like we all, because I know some people are like, okay, great, Kareem, we all get to go home. We won. Like, you and InfoWars and everybody can chill. No, you can't, because I hate the idea of like, oh, okay, we got like a little victory. Let's go. Because New York especially has problems. It can happen in Pennsylvania. It can happen here, guys. It's happening in Australia. It's happening in New York, right next to us, or wherever you're at in the U.S. This is happening in the U.S. So what's going on in New York? This is a little bit older, but it's December 27th. So the rules for this medical procedure at New York restaurants are going to get more strict. I'll just give you an example. So there was Eric St. Martin, a software engineer from Florida, 38. He and his daughter, Allie, 7, were turned away from Hard Rock Cafe in Times Square because she didn't get any shots. She didn't get this medical procedure. He just said, we're in New York for another week, and it's going to be a real pain not being allowed to eat at restaurants. And just to add this, people are shocked to find out that 5 to 11-year-olds can't get into restaurants without getting this procedure, even though it doesn't affect kids at all, really, as far as I'm concerned. From my perspective, they want to keep pushing it. And they said they didn't even know about the mandate for kids when they booked the holiday a month ago. Costa Rican tourist San Jose Santana, 37, and Danielle Afro, 36, said they were forced to tear up their itinerary and may even cut their visit to the city short, with children Victoria, 9, and Marcelo, 5. And I'm not going to keep going on to this. There's a lot of different things in this article. But just to let you know, New York is having extreme problems with this. And New York, in my opinion, one of the reasons they get so much revenue is because people are like, wow, I want to come see New York. It's the city of America, Statue of Liberty, whatever it is. Different like things, Times Square during New Year's. That was a big thing. I even wanted to go there. Now they're not going to go there because of this, as far as I'm concerned. And then last but not least, this is on Health Impact News. If you want to check this out, they are talking about people in California, which is another place you should be aware of. California nurses blow the whistle on overwhelming numbers of heart attacks, clotting, strokes. Doctors refuse to blame medical procedures for the fear of losing their medical license. So like Shane, you were saying, some doctors are on your side, and there are, but some are really afraid right now. And what I'm just going to cut this real short. They don't want to report that they're seeing 80% of the people in the ER had this medical procedure, but only 40% of the country got this medical procedure. More VC nurses are blowing the whistle on what's going on. They just say, I'm tired of all the BS that's going on. They told The Guardian, it's crazy how nobody questions anything anymore. None of the doctors question whether this medical procedure causes myocarditis, pericarditis, and the strokes that are coming in. If they don't toe the line, they could lose their medical license. And we've been having a lot of younger people come in, which is really sad. We're seeing a lot of strokes, heart attacks. And doctors were searching for everything under the sun in this chart, but nowhere do you see if they got the procedure or not. One thing that this procedure causes is thrombosis, if I'm saying that right, clotting. Here you have a 38-year-old woman, which to me is not old. That's not old. It's not super young, but that's not old, who got the procedure twice. She's having strokes. They can't explain. Now the doctors say it relates to this procedure. It's garbage. It's absolute garbage. Now, you can definitely check this out at Health Impact News. Just wanted to get these last two in and kind of get any last thoughts on New York with one, just the ridiculous mandates. Even if Biden's correct, there's no more federal mandates tomorrow. There's still a fight, in my opinion, in New York, which is super blue. And there's still a fight in California, which is super blue. I find it interesting, for one, the people in New York are putting up with this. I find it kind of crazy that doctors are like, oh, it's because he drank a beer when he was 18, or it's because he had a little bit of chunk, because I think we all got that, hanging out at our house and thing. It can never be this medical procedure that's causing it. And I like what you said. Nobody questions anything anymore. And this stuff gets me.
You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to question anymore. New York City is, they're actually, New York's drawing up. It gets voted on January 6th for quarantine camps, just like Australia. This is not real. You can read this. It's in a bill. What's happening in New York is what they want to happen across the nation. They do this little by little, because there is, states that fight back that aren't as blue and as liberal or progressive as other states. There's a video out there too of a kid actually getting removed from a restaurant because he wasn't vaccinated, and it's just now why are we removing this kid? Like, if you're protected, then why are you worried about this kid? We've got so delusional in our thinking. It's absolutely crazy. The died suddenly articles it's everywhere. Young people, if you're paying to the European soccer, people are just falling down on the ground, dying constantly, and at least having a heart attack, and it's just this is weird. And why aren't we having this conversation? Why are we not allowed to have this conversation? A basketball player just from BYU, just actually had a heart attack or something with his heart. He had to be removed. The young 20-year-old for the Cleveland Guardians. I can't, it should be the Cleveland Indians, but Cleveland Guardians. He died. It's just, honestly, it's what we're seeing is scary, and the fact that we're not allowed to have a conversation is scary. But like they said in that article, doctors are not allowed to question. The VAERS reports that are out there. This is the actual VAERS, which is a government website. This is the most deadliest experiment we've ever had of all the experiments, and that news isn't out there. Nobody's talking about that. I don't know if you guys just seen that New York Times. I shared it yesterday, but New York Times editor got the Moderna booster shot and died the next day. This really happened. So it's just a conversation we need to start having. I think you're going to start seeing more and more of this stuff is if we continue to boost away. I don't like to see it. I don't want to see it. I want to be wrong. But it's hard to say I am wrong.
Yeah, I want to be wrong too, especially when it's kids or younger people like that who are just starting their lives. You don't want to see that. Especially, I used to love watching soccer. I'd go away, like all my American friends are like, Kareem, we got to talk about the Steelers and the Pens, but we can't talk about soccer. And I go because I have family in Egypt. I go watch soccer and to see stuff like this, I'm like, oh my God. And all these people, you don't play soccer, like other sports, MMA and football, until you're 50. Those are all 20-some-year-old folks. It shouldn't be happening. It's not normal. If I can convince people of anything, this is not normal, and you should look into it and see what the heck is going on with this. So Daniel will just get some last words, and then I will plug Shane's social media and yours, and I think we're all good to go.
Yeah, on all this stuff, it comes down to with COVID, with the vaccine, with the mandates. You probably know more you probably know what's best for you more so than just about anybody else. Now, that doesn't mean that other people can't give you advice and making you take better decisions. That doesn't mean that other people don't know you. That doesn't mean that someone else might know you well enough to know that you don't know yourself sometimes and you're doing something impulsive. It doesn't mean that other people don't have a familiarity with your actions. It just means that if you feel an instinct and if you feel a sort of proclivity towards something, whether whether other people say that it's morally right or morally wrong or righteous or not, it doesn't matter. If you feel that proclivity towards something in your innate being and who you are and your psyche and your brain and your cognitive faculties, it's probably right, especially on a moral level. So, like, if you feel like you want to, and I'm not trying to make a debate against like rational or logical thinking here, but I'm just saying, like, if you're thinking about things and you go through things in your head, and you're like, oh, maybe I should get the vaccine, and then maybe you say, I'm not going to get it, and then you start feeling other people pressuring you, or with the mandates, maybe you get into a debate and someone tells you, oh, we need mandates because we need to keep people safe, but like, you have already worked through it, but you kind of are second guessing yourself because we're human beings. I mean, what the hell do we know, right? We're human beings. We know nothing. We really don't. We're incomparable to anyone else. There's someone else that knows 30 trillion times more than you, and lots of people have other information than you. So in the grand scale of things, who the hell are you to know anything? But when people are talking to you and you're second guessing yourself and you feel like that feeling that, nah, this it still doesn't seem right. Like when you're going out with your friends when you're younger and they're doing something wrong and you're with them and you feel like, oh, I don't know about this, but they're trying to convince you to do it because they want you to do it with them. Because I mean, humans don't like doing shit by themselves. If they're going to if they're going to attend to a guilty pleasure, why not get someone else to attend with it with them? Because at least, the more the merrier, and the more people go down at the same time, and it makes you feel less guilty when other people are around, and it's easier to justify and rationalize things when other people do it as well. So just know that feeling that made you feel bad for doing that thing with your friends when you were really young, it's still there, and sometimes you should listen to it. Yeah. Sometimes it matters.
I really like a post someone made, said, even if you're not like into all this, even if you're not, something in your soul has to be telling you that stuff is not adding up. And that's all I want for people, is just be like, okay, I'm not going to look into every single thing. You don't have to be like me, Shane, or Daniel looking at news all the time, because I get it. It's tough. It can get depressing, but at least be like, something is wrong here. Just like with the war on terror, something is wrong here. And if you can do that, you'll be ahead of most people who are just watching the mainstream media. So with that said, thank you for coming on, Shane. Please come back soon. Really loved having you here. You can find Shane at Shane Chesher 52, Facebook.com. You can find all the different things he posts. He posts quite a lot of good information here. And what was your Telegram?
Patriotic Truth. So patriotic and then space truth.
Yeah, so he's a patriot. He's talking about things that a lot of people are too afraid to talk about. So go check him out. If we get the right information out, we can change this world, and for the better. As quick as it got bad is as quick as it can get normal or good again. You can also find Daniel B by typing Daniel B in the YouTube search, and find his podcast, The Quantum Effect. He's done one with me and Shane just recently. We've done quite a few together. He has an intro to Mises and some interesting things about Bill Gates, Tesla, Fauci, and other interesting things that you need to watch. And if you want to take a look at our podcast, The Essential Libertarians, you can do so by typing in The Essential Libertarians. You will see our channel right here. Help us get the word out. Help spread liberty. I want to thank all of you guys for being here today, for all of your input. So thank you, Shane. Thank you, Daniel. I'm your host, Kareem Mays of the Essential Libertarians, giving you the tools for self-governance. I'll see you in the next video.